Welcome to EPG Pathashala. This is Professor Abdul Sattar, Department of Philosophy, SV University, Tirupati. Today's module is on Sufism under the paper Indian Religion and Philosophy. The significance of this module to today's contemporary scene is that till the end of this quarter of the first century, all the Indians were, whether belongs to any caste, creed or social or economic status, they were living together in peace. During the Middle Age, the mystics and the Sufis, they nurtured the value of humanism. But today, unfortunately, the darkness of clouds of communalism threatened to our glorious past history. It is in this connection we would like to study the modules Sufism to understand the service rendered by all the Sufis in promoting love and affection for all people, and make awareness towards the significance of social integration and communal harmony. Now, in this module, let us understand the objectives, what is Sufism and its etymology, history of Sufism, core philosophy of Sufism, Sufism and love, devotional practices of Sufism, famous Sufi orders, Sufism and social integration. Under Sufi philosophy, to the introduction to the Sufi philosophy, Sufism is a concept of mysticism dedicated to experiencing God as the epitome of divine love, emerged during the 8th century Christian era. Subsequently, developed into several different orders known as tariqas. Sufis believe that excessive rationalism blocks human understanding of God's immersive and loving nature. Sufism focuses on directly experiencing God through ecstatic practice in order to efface the obstructing self. Sufism is sometimes called Islamic mysticism. In Arabic, it is also called tasawwuf, literally to dress in wool in Arabic, but it has been called Sufism in Western language since the early 19th century. An abstract word, Sufism, derives from the Arabic term for mystic, Sufi, which is the term derived from the saf, wool, is plausible a reference to the woolen garment of early Islamic ascetics. The Sufis are also generally known as the poor fukara, plural of Arabic fakir, in Persian dervish, when the English words fakir and dervish. Sufi, more correctly Sufi, the Persian form of plural being Sufyan, a man of the people called Sufyan, who profess the mystic principle of tasawwuf, mysticism. The origin of this word is said to be derived from the Arabic saf, wool, on account of woolen dress worn by Eastern ascetics, or from the Arabic safu, purity, with reference to the effort to attain to metaphysical purity, or from the Greek wisdom. Some say it is derived from the Safa, in the name of tribe of Arabs who, in the time of ignorance, separated themselves from the world and engaged themselves exclusively in the service of Makkah. In other words, it signifies Islamic mysticism, literally meaning of Sufism or Sufism, is possessing spiritual purity, becoming a part of unity of truth, being sensitive to one's own rights and the aspirations and the right of humanity in general, possessing from belief in God Almighty, tracing one's own soul. Sufism, in fact, is a tradition based on the life and character of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Only through this method or tradition one can understand the principle of Islam, because the religion comprises of principles while life of the Prophet is the model of living. Such a living encompasses the principle of purity of soul, supremacy of oneness of God, appreciation for human rights, firmness of belief and training of soul. In short, the Prophet's life is synonymous with love for humanity. Sufism is actually yet another form of Prophet's life and encompasses the principle of Muhammad. A Sufi is one who wears wool over this purity and gives his lust the taste of tyranny, and having overthrown the world, journey in the path of the chosen one. Sufis are those in whose eyes gold and mud are equal. Sufism certainly has an esoteric sense. To understand this esoteric meaning, it is necessary to follow the three main categories or classification of men given by the Quran in Surah Waqia. Here, men are sorted out in three classes: Ashabul Maimana, the companions of the right hand; Ashabul Mashama, the companions of the left hand; Mukhrabun, those nearest to God. The companions of the right hand are those who believe in the unseen or steadfast in prayer and have the assurance of the hereafter in their hearts. They are on the right path, guided by their Lord. The companions of the left hand are those who reject faith and go after false gods. The Mukarrabun are those who believe not only their Creator as their only deity and worship Him alone and seek for His help alone, but also know the true relation that exists between them and their Creator. Sufism, al-Tasawwuf, which is the esoteric or inward batin aspect of Islam, is to be distinguished from esoteric or external zahir aspect of Islam. Sufism contains its end or aim within itself, in the sense that it can give access to direct knowledge of the eternal. The central doctrine of Sufism is Wahdatul Wujud, the oneness of being. This is derived directly from the Shahada, which is understood not only as there is no God, but God also as there is no reality except reality. Sufism, as we have understood, it represents the mystical trend of Islam. In Arabic, the word is referred to tasawwuf. It is defined as the mysticism of Islam, or inward aspect of Islam, or we can say it is a phenomenon of mysticism in Islam. And generally speaking, there are several possible etymologies for the word Sufi. Conventional view is that the term originates from Saf, the Arabic word for wool. Root word of Sufi comes from the Arabic word Safa, meaning purity. From the Ashabul al-Safa, companions of the veranda, or al-Safa, Ahl al-Safa, people of the veranda, who were a group of Muslims during the time of Prophet Muhammad that spent much of their time on the veranda of the Prophet's mosque devoted to prayer. The word Sufia is linked with the Greek term wisdom, Sophia. The word Sufi comes from the Arabic word Saf, which means wool. The name Sufi was originally associated with the Islamic mystics who wore the wool cloth as a symbol of renunciation of worldly efforts or worldly comforts. And The Sufi characteristics emphasizes more on what to call values and rituals, ritual practices, doctrines, and institutions which began on in the what to call in the Islamic history. With this, let us understand the history of Sufi history or history of Sufism. Almost all traditional Sufi orders trace their chains of transmission back to the Muhammad via his cousin and son-in-law Ali ibn Abu Talib, except Naqshbandi order. Naqshbandi order, which traces its origin to Khalifa Abu Bakr. Each order believes that Sufi teachings were passed on from teacher to student through the centuries. Practices including fasting, wearing light clothing in the depths of winter, are withdrawing themselves from the world. Early Sufism arose out of the practice of asceticism, the turning away from worldly life to concentration on prayer to Allah. Sufism began to flourish in Baghdad, spreading then to Persia, Pakistan, India, North Africa, and Spain. Uwais al-Qarni, Haram bin Hiyana, Hassan ul-Basri, and Sayyid ibn ul-Musib are regarded as the first mystic in Islam. Tracing out the history of Islamic Sufism, we can say that there are Sufis like Rabia and Al-Halaj who had shown their blind love towards God, and they dare to declare that they have the utmost love towards the Lord. And even Rabia Basri reported to have said that my beloved is always with me, and my love and the love which I can have no substitute. And Al-Haraj also made the statement, I am the truth. And sometimes because of these statements, the Al-Halaj was executed. But here, though Islam denies this kind of statements, Islam believes in the ultimate reality, that is God, the only omnipotent, who is the creator, sustainer of the world. And in the face of the omnipotency, no man can have equal status or a oneness with Allah. That is the reason why some Sufi philosophers or some Islamic philosophers deny Sufi trend. Now, let us understand with this Sufi philosophy in general. Sufism as a whole is primarily concerned with direct-to-personal experience, and as such may be compared to other forms of religious mysticism. Sufis make extensive use of parable, allegory, and metaphor to express divine longing and mystical experience. People who sense this special perception within themselves and who work to transcend ordinary human constraints can further develop their minds to know God. Sufism developed several key doctrines, including Wahdat, meaning unity, which affirms the oneness of Allah, Tawheed, and Tawakkul, meaning absolute trust in God. The Sufis agreed that God is one, alone, single, eternal, everlasting, knowing, powerful, living, hearing, seeing, strong, mighty, majestic, great, generous, clement, proud, awful, enduring, first, good, God, Lord, ruler, master, merciful, compassionate, desirous, speaking, creating, sustaining, that he is qualified with all the attributes wherewith he has qualified himself and named with all the names whereby he has named himself. The chief basis of Sufism is faith, Islamic faith, Iman, has 6 pillars. These are God exists, God is one, there are angels, there are prophets, there is a day restoration, there is a fate. Sufis do not preach, though they teach. When they teach methods, not principles. Sufis do not believe in religion, they live in religion. For a Sufi, God is not an idea, it is his lived reality. God is just another name for the totality of existence. The central concern of the Sufis, as of every Muslim, was Tawheed, the witness that there is no deity but God, the truth that had to be realized in the existence of each individual, and so the expressions differ. With regard to the concept of God and the Sufi faiths, first of all, let me make you clear that Islam believes the one and only God. It is purely monotheistic in nature. Islam is monotheistic religion. Here, Sufism is a kind of pantheistic monism. Here, it is monism because reality is only one, that is Allah. And it is pantheistic in the sense that it is of the pantheism is the view that reality, God is in everything, but God is not identical with everything. This is the difference between Sufi conception of God and the Islamic conception of God. Though it has its own differences, Sufis belief is so popular in the Sunni sect of Islam. And let us go into the details of Islam and Sufism. Islam does not believe in the incarnation or infusion of God. The matter lies between Allah, the Lord, Rabb, and every man, his creatures and servant Abd. To conclude, the life of a Sufi is strictly regulated in accordance with Islamic theology and traditions. To attain this aim, he must have an unshakable belief in the existence of God, working upon God alone as being worthy of worship and surrendering himself to his will. With this aim in view, he has to undergo a course of training in regular prayers and meditation to attain the divine knowledge and realization of truth. Worshipping the Lord, the one God, monotheism, is the sole goal of the Sufi. The goal and the aim of worldly life of a Sufi is God alone. He loves God alone. His thinking, meditation and prayer are for God alone. And when he thinks of God alone, his mind is purified, and in this sense, he finds himself attached to God and disconnected with everything except God. A Sufi always believes or accepts only God. Though people does not accept Sufi accepts God only, but not the people. And because his only aim is to have a communion with God, a merger of the self with God. Or we can say he always tries to make an inward journey to attain the union with God. Let us move to this to the obstacles on the path of how a Sufi can reach the ultimate man's goal. The difficulties in following the path or obstacles to getting closer to God's derive primarily from one's self or ego, nafs. In other words, it can be said that if one is not recognizing or experiencing God's closeness or presence, the responsibility for this condition lies with one's own self. Some of the gross effects of the dominance of this nafs are that one may become overwhelmed by the need to gratify desires such as anger, lust, and the many addictions that afflict us. Other gross effects are that one may become dominated by states of consciousness such as anxiety, boredom, regret, depression, and self-pity, so that one feels like a powerless victim or prisoner tortured within one's own mind. The behavioral absolutes of the Sharia, Islamic law, set the outer limits that the Sufi must keep within, but the Sufi struggle with one's nafs put further curbs on the Sufi's behavior and consciousness. Usually, this struggle is spoken of as having two dimensions: negation, nafi, and affirmation, itahabat, corresponding to the two components of the first shahada, testifying of faith, la ilaha, there is no deity, and illallah, except God. In reference to the two kinds of effects of the dominance of the nafs mentioned above, the negation can be said to take the form of attempting to control oneself from acting out one's anger or gratifying addictions. To negate the thought that one will find fulfillment through these means. To negate the sense that one cannot escape one's depression, and to give up imagining that God is absent. The affirmation can be said to take the form of embracing and engaging the presence of God in whatever form it may appear within one's consciousness. This unconditional embrace of the presence of God is simply called taslim in Muslim language. This word is cognate with and is at the root of word Islam. And the light of the meaning expressed here, I have translated it as engaged surrender. In this struggle with one's own nafs have been called a greater struggle or greater holy war, al-Jihad al-Akbar, in contrast to the lesser struggle, al-Jihad al-Asghar, which is against injustice and oppression in this world. Needless to say, in Sufism, these struggles are mutually reinforcing and occur simultaneously. In particular, the practice of engaged surrender in the greater struggle with one's own nafs diminishes certain obstacles in the consciousness of the Sufi, obstacles that, if not struggled against, will hinder the Sufi's capacity to engage in the lesser struggle in their life in the world. Here, this Sufi struggle is more significant in present-day contemporary relevance. Why? Because the word jihad is popularly misunderstood, and it has been used as a propagation for a religion, Islam. But here, even the Sufis believe the al-Jihad al-Nafs is the better, good struggle to be made. Why? Because only it has been stressed that waging a war or holy war against the inner evils, not the outer evils, is advisable. And the suppression and exploitation, waging a war against suppression and injustice is only secondary struggle with regard to Sufis. Sufis considered this waging a war, al-Jihad, al-Nafs is primary. After this, let us move to Sufism and love. Sufis believe that the highest form of human love is the pure love for the divine. Humans can achieve this love if they give themselves entirely to the Allah's will. Sufis consider love for family, friends, material goods, even paradise, all to be distractions from the love of God. The heart of a believer should be so overwhelming with God's love that there is no other room for any other emotion in it. Such belief is that love is a projection of the essence of God to the universe. Sufis' devotional practices are remembrance of Allah, dhikr, and other forms of backbone are the forms of the backbone of Sufi practices. Poetry and music are devotional tools used by Sufis to remind the seeker of God's presence. Sufis are also distinguish Latif-e-Sitta, the six subtleties that designate the spiritual centers of sensory perception that lie dormant in the individual: nafs, khalb, roof, sir, kafi, and akhfa. Sufis seek to activate and awaken these centers. Murkaba is the word used by Sufis when referring to the practice of meditation. The Arabic word literally means to observe God or control one's thought and desires. To some Sufi orders, murkaba may involve concentrating one's mind on the names of God, on a verse of Quran, or certain Arabic letters that have special significance. Dhikr is the remembrance of God commanded in Quran for all Muslims. To engage the dhikr is to have awareness of God according to Islam. Dhikr is a devotional act that includes the repetition of divine names, supplications, and aphorisms from the Hadith literature and sections of the Quran. More generally, any activity in which the Muslim maintains awareness of God is considered dhikr. Qawwali is a form of devotional Sufi music common in Pakistan, North India, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Turkey. It is known for its secular strains. Khalwa refers to a form of retreat, once widespread but now less common. A khalwa may be presented by the shaykha, spiritual advisor of the murid or talib student. Muslims believe that most of the prophets and also Mary, the mother of Jesus, lived in some form of seclusion at some point in their life. Muhammad, for example, used to retreat to the cave where he received his first inspiration, but had been going there for many years prior to his meeting with the angel Gabriel. Similar examples include Moses going into seclusion for 40 days in a cave in Mount Sinai. Mary was in seclusion in the Jewish temple for a year where Zechariah was permitted to see her. Famous Sufi orders. The term tariqa is used for a school or order of Sufism. Tariqa especially for the mystical teaching and spiritual practices of such an order with the aim of seeking haqiqa, ultimate truth. A tariqa has a nourished guide who plays the role of leader or spiritual director. The members or followers of tariqa are known as muridin, singular murid, meaning desirous. The Chishti order was founded by Khwaja Abu Ishaq Shami, the Syrian, died in 1941, who brought Sufism to the town of Chishti, some 95 miles east of Herat in present-day Afghanistan. The Chishti order is primarily followed in Afghanistan and South Asia. It was the first of the four main Sufi orders, Chishti, Qadriya, Suhrawardiya, and Naqshbandiya, to be established in this region. Muhammad Chishti introduced the Chishti order in Lahore, Punjab, and Ajmer, Rajasthan, sometimes in the middle of 12th century Christian era. He was eighth in the line of succession from the founder of Chishti order, Abu Ishaq Shami. There are now several branches of order which has been the most prominent South Asian Sufi brotherhood since the 12th century. The Naqshbandi order is one of the major Sufi orders of Islam. Formed in 1380, the order is considered by some to be a sober order known for its silent dhikr, remembrance of God, rather than the vocalized forms of dhikr common in other orders. It is one of the Sufi way that traces its spiritual lineage to the Islamic prophet Muhammad, Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa and Muhammad's companion. Some Naqshbandi masters trace their lineage through Ali, Muhammad's cousin, son-in-law, and the fourth Khalifa, in keeping with most other Sufis. Prominent sheikhs. Bahauddin Naqshbandi Bukhari was the founder of great Sufi Naqshbandi order. Sheikh Ahmad al-Faruqi Shirindi was Mujaddid a leader of Naqshbandi Sheikh from India. The Qadri order is one of the oldest Sufi orders. It derives its name from Abdul Qadir Jilani, a native of the Iranian province of Gilan. The Qadriya have not developed any distinctive doctrines or teachings outside of mainstream of Islam. Suhrawardiya order is a Sufi order founded by Abu al-Najib al-Suhrawardi. The order was formalized by his nephew Shahab al-Din Abu Hafs Umar Suhrawardi. The Qadri order is one of the oldest Sufi orders. It derives its name from Abdul Qadir Jilani, a native of the Iranian province. The Qadriya have not developed any distinctive doctrines or teaching outside of mainstream of Islam. Any person over the age of 18 may be initiated. They may be asked to live in the order's communion teki and to recount their dreams to their sheikh. The aim of a Sufi life always is to love God and to seek His favor and pleasure, which is not possible unless he renders his service to mankind. Many Sufis have expressed their views about the object of Sufism. The fundamental ideology of Sufism is God, man and the relation between them, which is love. The Sufis helped in developing a more humanitarian approach in religious life with their stress on service to mankind and their belief that love of God was not possible without love of mankind. All religions try to discipline the human behavior and create harmonious atmosphere in the society in which man could live in peace. The Sufis believed in equality and fraternity of mankind. They opposed narrow-mindedness, caste and communal barriers, which cause conflict and destroy social harmony. The aim of a Sufi's life always is to love God and to seek His favor and pleasure, which is not possible unless he renders his services to mankind. Many Sufis have expressed their views about the object of Sufism. The fundamental ideology of Sufis is God, man and the relation between them, which is love. The Sufis helped in developing a more humanitarian approach in religion's life and with a stress on service to mankind and their life that love of God was not possible without love of mankind. If the national integration is to be achieved, we need to revive the spirit of Sufism. The people of this great nation will still have their roots in religion, and religious leaders can greatly help to achieve goal for peace and harmony. All religions try to discipline the human behavior and create harmonious atmosphere in the society in which man could live in peace. The fundamental ideology of Sufi is God, man and the relation between them, which is love. The Sufis helped in developing a more humanitarian approach in religious life with their stress on service to mankind and their life that love of God was not possible without love of mankind. The Sufis believed in equality and fraternity of mankind. They eschewed a narrowness of mind and opposed caste and communal barriers which cause conflict and destroy social harmony. But man by nature is a queer combination of contradictions. The religious codes and Sufi teachings about hell and heaven therefore serve as a powerful deterrent to keep mankind within bounds, organized and disciplined. We are faced with a very serious problem of communal conflict in contemporary society. It would be very difficult to achieve the object of modern nation building if this conflict keeps on surfacing. It is therefore highly necessary to harness all our resources, spiritual as well as material, to bring about unity and integrity. As far as spiritual resources, we must look up to our past heritage, especially to those who belong to the Sufi and Bhakti movements. These movements were based on true religiosity, not on sectarianism or on humanism, not on religious denominations. We, in this module, propose to throw some light on the role of Sufis in bridging a gap between the two great religions of India, Hinduism and Islam. This would certainly help to remove many mutual misunderstandings. There are a few things which must be properly understood in this connection right at the outset. Firstly, it is not true that Islam spread only with the help of sword and that the Muslim rulers' primarily interest was to preach Islam by force or by persuasion. Far from it, Muslim rulers were primarily interested in ruling and governing India by whatever manner possible. Another fallacious assumption has been on both the side of the religious divide that Islam and Hinduism are incompatible with each other. Hence, no integration has ever been possible between them, and they have always been mutually embroiled in conflict. There are some detectable fallacies in these apparently neat assumptions. Firstly, it is assumed that any theological incompatibility would inevitably result in social incompatibility. In other words, if there are theological differences, social differences are bound to arise. This is not only empirically not borne out, but even the Sufis proved this assumption wrong by bringing about various religious communities together in their taqiyas and dargahs, shrines. Secondly, there have been as much interreligious doctrinal incompatibilities as interreligious one. In both the religions and interreligious sectarian rigidities have often resulted in great deal of religious conflicts. However, it is also important to note that the masses, by and large, remain unaffected by these controversies. It is only religious elite who fan them to serve their extra-religious interests. Had these interests been of religious or doctrinal nature, Sufis, intensely religious people, would not have succeeded in reconciling them when ulama failed to do so. Ulama assumed much more rigid doctrinal postures as they were more interested in having political say than the Sufis, who always remained alienated from the power structures. Of course, we must understand the fact that Sufism was a product of feudal society. It was, so to say, feudal humanism. The contemporary social structure is not congenial to the Sufi practices, and hence it has nearly disappeared from our socio-religious scene. But it is part of our socio-cultural and religious heritage and must be valued as such. The Sufi values, though not its practices, are still quite relevant for us. We are torn with coming conflict today. In the concluding part, let us once again understand what we have understood in this module on Sufism. First, we have understood Sufism as a mystical trend in Islam, and it has been understood as what you call inward dimension of Islam, stresses, and also the phenomenon that mysticism in Islam, and the Sufi's philosophy emphasizes greater values, ritual practices, doctrines, institutions, which began in early Islamic history. As we have understood, the name Sufi was originally associated with the Islamic ascetics who wore woolen cloth as a symbol of renunciation of mundane comforts. And later on, it has been specifically associated with Muslim mystics or Sufis. And Sufism has been identified with a kind of pantheistic monism. And also, the Sufi characteristics are not different from the essential characteristics of any mysticism. In that way, it is very close to Vedanta, Indian philosophy. Aham Brahmasmi, Ayatman Brahma. This is that thou art resembles a kind of Sufi orders, a Sufi thinking, where Sufi aim is to have a merger of self with God or union with God. sometimes this shows the mainstream Islamic thinkers in a contrary outlook. Why? Because Islam believes primarily a monotheistic religion which believes one and only God, Allah, and therefore it is out and out monotheistic character. It is out and out a monotheism. But here, even the female mystic Rabia also has made it clear that her love for God has no boundaries, and he used to say he wants to have a merger of God, his soul with God. Just like Meera, he shows her devotion, blind love towards God, Lord Krishna. This is how Sufism plays an important role in social integration and establishing communal harmony. Thank you very much.